Stockholm's elite. 3 bodies found, bludgeoned. Today's case, the von Sydow murders.
Morbid history.
As stated, this story starts with one of the most prominent families in Swedish aristocratic history, the von Sydows. In 1908, their only son, this family's, Hjalmar's only son, was born, Fredrik von Sydow. He was born to Hjalmar and a sickly mother. She was bedridden during his childhood and sadly passed away during later childhood. She was a morphine addict, so this all of course lent a bit of tragedy to his life. But even so, he did thrive. He was seen as a very charming man and boy man, and he always had groupies, if that was a thing back then. He didn't have a hard time making friends. He was an aristocratic party boy with a golden spoon firmly placed in his mouth, and he was gonna use that to his advantage. Indeed. Then one fateful summer, when Fredrik was around 16-17, he and his family went to their summer house out in the Swedish, their fancy vacation house where they went every summer. And there Fredrik met the 16-year-old Ingun. She too came from a very rich and prominent family, although they were nouveau riche. They did not have the background and aristocratic bloodline. So Ingun, 16, and Fredrik fell quickly head over heels. Ingun too had had a very difficult childhood. The difficulty there, though, was not a morphine-addicted mother who passed. Instead, Ingun's own mother had left the family for a Romani violin player. That's a story of its own, I'm guessing. But either way, that ended with Ingun's father having to take care of his family alone. We can assume that these family tragedies were one of the glues that stuck Fredrik and Ingun so fiercely together. And also, they were both seen as very charming and beautiful individuals in their own right. This flirtation, of course, continued, even though both families had something against each other. It became a bit of a Romeo and Juliet thing. And Ingun pretty soon found herself Bergante. No one liked that. They were still too young to make decisions on their own. Ingun was quickly sent to Italy to get skinny, as it was called, which basically meant that she was sent there to give birth and give up her daughter, which they called Monica, and just left her there to be taken care of by some governess, while Ingun, broken and traumatized, returned to Stockholm. This only proved to cement Fredrik's and Ingun's affections to each other. No surprise, when they both turned adult, they decided to get married pronto and go back to Italy and pick up Monica, and decided to start a family of their own. So far, so good. The problem there was, though, that during the time Ingun spent in Italy, which was a pretty long time, Fredrik had gotten himself into a lot of trouble, partying wildly out of depression or anything. Either way, he did everything, all the drugs, all the alcohol, and all the partying. So when they did get married and brought Monica back, it wasn't a stable Fredrik that Ingunn had on her hands. The marriage quickly turned tumultuous, to put it lightly, very lightly. Once Fredrik really fell off the deep end and started gambling all his money away, Ingunn at some point gave up and left him. This resulted in Fredrik taking himself to a hotel room, smoking, drunk out of his goddamn head, smoking in his bed, falling asleep, putting the entire room on fire, trying to save himself, jumping out of the window of the entirely destroyed room. By that point, it has been speculated that the fall, which he survived, caused some kind of brain injury and personality change, which would explain what would happen next. On to the murders. A cold evening in 1932. The police enter this extravagant townhouse and find Hjalmar badly, extremely badly beaten. Hjalmar, the father of this now crazed addict. What happened? 2 other bodies were also found during the search, and those were of the housekeepers Ebba and Carolina. From the little pieces of evidence that have been able to gather, Hjalmar came home around 4 p.m. that day. It is speculated that we can conclude that at some point, pretty certainly very soon after Hjalmar entered his home, he was struck down brutally with a clothing iron. And the same had happened to the 2 housekeepers. The timeline here is thought that the housekeepers had been told to not let Fredrik close to the spirit cabins. He could not have any alcohol or whiskey or money from the apartment, and Fredrik and Ingunn had come there for those. Angered in the refusal of the housekeepers, he beat them with this clothing iron. Realizing that this was quite a dire situation at this point, he did the same when his papa came soon after. Kinda cancelling life subscriptions himself into a corner. There. Then we can assume that they were on cleaning duties, both Ingunn and Fredrik. At around 5 p.m. there was a knock on the door. It was Fredrik's 15-year-old cousin, a girl who lived there. She was studying in Stockholm. Fredrik let her in and told her that they were just cleaning up some wine that they had spilt and would be going soon. The girl noticed that there were some locked doors, but didn't think too much of it at that point. But soon after Fredrik and Ingunn went on their merry way, suspicions arose a bit more, and the girl called the police, as one should. They came there and found a few locked doors at 6 p.m. After a quick investigation locking up some locked doors, they found one of the housekeepers in Hjalmar's room, lying there demised. Then they went to the other locked door, which was a housekeeper's room, and inside they found Hjalmar, who had been dragged into there on the floor. He was lying on the floor, and the other housekeeper was sitting up in a chair, bludgeoned, blood everywhere. Testimonies from the cousin and all that, of course, quickly pointed all the fingers at Fredrik and Ingun. Police quickly sent out police everywhere in search of the suspects. Ingun and Fredrik had chosen to take a horse and carriage and get into the Stockholm nightlife. They went to an apothecary and bought some drugs. They went to pubs and restaurants, and then they took a room at a fancy hotel called Gillet, where they sat drinking champagne and eating oysters with all their friends. It didn't take long for the law to find them after these nightly escapades. At some point they had also borrowed a gun from a friend. Important soon. So the police went to Gillet and asked the staff if they could bring Fredrik, who was the main suspect, for questioning into the lobby. Fredrik took Ingun and brought her along, and once they came to the lobby, he bowed down to Ingun, whispered something in her ear, took up his gun, and high-velocity lead boomed her to demise, then and there, and then did the same to himself, taking any questions and answers with him. Both of them did. So, of course, we do know who did the murdering of Hjalmar and his housekeepers. Ingun, we also know, tried to remove herself from Fredrik many times. Their child Monica survived and actually wrote a book about it all later in life. It's impossible for us to know exactly what brought this extreme action on. From Fredrik's sake, like, he was a gambling alcoholic in need of money and alcohol. Ingun might just have been codependent, or was she also murdered? Didn't she know, like, what he was able... Did she truly understand to which length he could go to? Stockholm Syndrome? Fitting, since it was in Stockholm. So yeah, demise sewer slide. Did they have a pact? Was Ingun in on it? Was it all Fredrik? Did he force her along on this wild ride? They took all these questions to the grave. The media frenzy that followed was extreme. When Hjalmar was buried, there were so many people walking along a procession after. I would love to know your thoughts, ideas, theories. Was Ingun in on it? Or was she just trying to make Fredrik happy? Was she scared of him? But at the same time, she did follow along and do all this. She helped him clean the crime scene. Yeah, it's all very strange and sad. Was Fredrik just a mentally unstable man in a manic episode, and in the last moment he just couldn't leave the love of his life behind? Yeah, oh my god. Please, let me know down below what you thought about it. Stay amazing, stay hydrated, and most of all, stay morbid. Thank you so much for watching, and giant thanks to my lovely Patreons. You're my heroes. If you want to support the channel, find links down below for my Patreon and Ko-fi if you want to leave a tip, and also I have a shop where I make some handmade crafts. So yeah, like and subscribe and comment down below. Stay amazing.